Hello and welcome back. Well, today I'm going to attempt to install the ducting for the dust extractor in the workshop here. Now, if you saw the video last week, I mentioned that the next job was to install the roller door, and I've got that pretty much done. I've just got the brackets in the garage getting painted, and these temporary brackets will be taken off and the new brackets put up, and that will be all done. Anyway, back to dust extraction, and what I want to do here is run a main trunk all the way down the top of the sort of roof wall area here, and that is 6-inch PVC, and then there'll be some droppers coming down the wall. Now this separator here, or cyclone that you see, will be outside, and there will be a hole in the wall for the piping to go through. And that is kind of an important part here, and I'll talk about that in a minute or so. It's always best to draw out a bit of a plan of what you want to do and how things are going to work, and that's what I've done here. I've got the total length, it's 8 meters long, this workshop. That's the main trunk way up the top there, and then the droppers coming down the wall, and some of them sort of come across the room to the lathe and other machines like that. The dust separator here will be on the other side of the wall, albeit it will be probably a little bit higher because I need to make that platform a bit higher outside. The important measurement is how far away from the wall do we need that main ducting trunk at the top, and that depends on this part here. So what I'm doing is I'm just measuring from the wall to the edge of the pipe. And then, of course, there's a little bit that's going to poke into the wall so I can get a little bit closer to the wall. So from the wall to the edge of the pipe is 230 millimeters. And then I can insert 70 millimeters into the wall. So that will mean that the main ducting right at the top will be about 160 millimeters away from the wall, which is just over 6 inches. I figured the best thing to do would be to lay all the piping out on the floor in the correct positions. And to do that, we'll refer back to the plan. And so I've put that on the window there so it's nice and close to where I'm working. On this day it was raining and I couldn't put the camera outside, so I had to wait for that to finish. And then I was able to start laying out the pipes and have the camera outside so I can sort of capture everything. Firstly, in the corner here, this will be a dropper for a floor sweep. So it'll come down 6-inch pipe and have some sort of pan underneath, and then we'll be able to sweep the floor and just suck that up into the dust extractor. The miter station will be about where the second dropper is, and this dropper comes down the left-hand side of the window. There's one in the center which will come across the room to feed extraction on that side. The next one is on the right hand side of the window. That will probably feed the router table. Now these two together, this is the part that goes through the wall to the cyclone. So there's a dropper and then the elbow bit that goes through. To the right of that we have one for the lathe. Now this one will be overhead and it will drop down. That will be used mainly for sanding when working on the lathe. And then lastly, around the corner here, we have one dropper that comes down, and this will feed the bandsaw and possibly maybe a hose for cleaning up the lathe and things like that. These 45s need to be lined up properly, so I'm using the floor here to make them flat, and then a reference line goes across both of them. Now I need to cut a piece of joining pipe, and I almost get through on my saw here, but not quite, so I have to rotate it round. But I have a laser on here, so it's quite good. It lines up the cut nicely. I give those edges a bit of a sand so there's no burrs on them. And then I assemble it together. Now these are quite a tight fit, and I have to do a bit of persuasion off camera. I didn't get it exactly right. It's a little bit out, maybe a pencil line, but I think this is going to be fine. I've cut a whole lot of joiners for the Ys and the 45s to be joined together. Again, I'm using the floor as a reference to make it flat, and then a reference line goes in. This time I'm using a bit of persuasion with a wooden mallet, and the fit into the Y is a little bit looser, so that's quite good. Just a few little knocks there and that's all together. Now I've cut some longer sections of pipe, there's 3 of them here, and then I can join all those pieces together. Since it's on the floor, it's all lined up, and that bit of pipe goes on. Now this bit here is the bit that goes across the room, so that needs to be a little bit less than 90 degrees from the other droppers. And to get the correct angle, I need to reference off the wall that the pipe's going to go against and the rafter that's on an angle. And I check that again, and that's the angle we need. I've made vertical points on halfway here, and then I just need to rotate this bit of pipe to the right angle. Once again, we put a reference line here so that when I knock it together, I can keep those lines in alignment. This is the dropper that goes on the right hand side of the window. I've drawn lines on the floor here to make sure that everything lines up properly, and I'm having a look and that all looks good. Now this piece is around about 4 meters long, so it's getting a little bit long and heavy, and oh, there goes the shop cat come to investigate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some hangers, and then I'm going to hang this section up and then work on the other sections. So I'm using a bit of cardboard here and a piece of pipe, because the pipe needs to sit in a round or half round hole. And I sort of mark it out with a black felt pen where I need to cut. And that sort of gives us our template. Well, that template was actually no good, so I've had to make a new one. And this template has a lot more room here at this end and a little bit more down at the other end. And that's so I can screw this bracket onto the wall into the nogs. The next step is to trace out this template onto some 12mm plywood. I'm sort of doing it in a way where I can get the most out of this piece of board. Here we have 8 parts that I can get out of the board. So now I just need to rough cut the piers out, and I'm using the jigsaw here. It's probably the easiest way to get through. Once that's all done, we're over to the bandsaw. I have a lot more control to follow the lines here. Once the part is cut out, it would look a bit like that, and I check the pipe to make sure it's going to fit. So they're the 8 parts all cut out, and I'll save you watching me sand all these, and I'll come back once that's done and we'll work on the next part. So the next part is some separator strips, and I'll talk a bit more about these later on. But basically this is 21mm ply, and I'm cutting off a 26mm strip here. These are the parts that I've made, some long ones, medium ones, and some short ones. And this is how the brackets go together. There's 2 pieces, and they're separated by these strips. The middle one goes there, and the short one goes there. They're all glued and tacked in place with the brad gun. And then, of course, I'll check the pipe to make sure it fits in there. Once that's all together, I'll be able to screw through here and at the bottom onto the wall. Now remember that these plywood parts have been cut out on the bandsaw, so the edges here are not straight. So I'm using my belt grinder here to flatten off the backs, which is the part that gets screwed to the wall. Here we are, all excited to put our brackets up on the wall and then put our pipe in there. And so I go up on the wall and I work out where the bracket needs to go. And my friend in the background there, O'Day, he kindly advises me that this light is in the way. And unfortunately, all the lights are in the way. So I mark out where the bracket needs to go, and we need to go to plan B. The issue we have is this corner here needs to be 150 millimeters down to the left here. I've got this block at the top where the light screws into, so I need to put another block next to it over here. We've got to do that to all the lights. Off camera, I cut up all of the blocks. These are 150 millimeters long, and they will be good for when the light gets moved down. We'll put the screw somewhere in the middle here, and that'll hold the light up. Now I have pre-drilled these, and that's so that I can use these gun nails to gun them up into the ceiling there, and that will make it easier to install. Now where did I put my nail gun? Oh, there it is. So pretty easy, just put the block next to the other one and nail those in. And then off camera, I moved all the lights across 150 millimeters. So now I'm able to install the bracket. And there's a screw in the top. I'll level that up, make sure we're straight up and down, and the screw goes in the bottom. And I'll actually double up here, put a couple of screws in the top, couple in the bottom. This is the last bracket for this section of ducting. Same process, 2 screws in the top, 2 in the bottom. Then I thought about the glue and the brad nails that's holding all this together. So I thought I'd screw in some screws on the side next to the part that gets screwed to the wall to give it some more strength. Here's the moment of truth. I've got some help here as well. And it's just a matter of lifting it up and putting it on the brackets. We're a little bit one way, so we line it up. And that is pretty much how simple it is. Now I've got to work on the next part of the ducting, and I need 2 brackets up on this piece here. The problem is the brackets that are already made are too long at the bottom and they will poke out below that ledge. So I've had to change the template to make slightly different brackets. That said, the process is all the same. Pretty much trace out the template onto some plywood and cut that out on the bandsaw. Give it a quick sand. Cut some strips. Glue the strips on and brad nail them. And then brad nail everything together. Add some extra screws for strength. Oh, this bit's funny. I'll put the next screw in and then have a look at this. The jar is sitting upright and all the screws are still in it. How lucky is that? The last step is to flatten the backs off so that they fit flat on the wall. There are the 2 new modified brackets there, and I'll be working on the ducting on this end of the workshop next. This target on the wall here is the center of the pipe that will go through the wall into the dust collector, which will be outside. And below that is the dropper that comes down, and there will be 245s that connect and go through the wall there. So it's really important that this is in the correct place. What I've done here is I've leveled all the way to the floor and made a line and put a line to the center of the pipe. And then I know that that is in the correct position. That will allow me to cut the joining pipes to the right length. To the right of that is the Y-joint that goes over the lathe. Again, this needs to have a funky angle, so we'll work on that as well. And then right at the back there are the 245s for the dropper that comes down the wall to feed the bandsaw and maybe the lathe as well. So the process is pretty much all the same. More cutting pipe, more banging pipe together, more finding funky angles, and more banging pipe together. So once all the pipes are being put together, now I'm putting up the last 2 brackets that were modified. Now this piece is 3.6 meters long, so it is still quite big and awkward to handle. So I've got some help again, and we put that in there. To my left, I'm just having some issues with the Y catching on the bracket, and then that pops into place, which is good. We tap all this together off camera. Now this is the critical part. I have a level line already on the wall there, so I'm lining the level up, and I can see that the pipe is dead in the center of this line. So I'm really happy with that. That dropper will come down and then go through the wall and out to the dust separator. So that's pretty much all of the main trunk all the way down the shop with all the different angles and Ys that we need. Now, of course, there's droppers that need to come down the wall, but I'll do those later because I need to put in blast gates, which I'm going to make myself, and those blast gates will double as brackets that go on the wall to hold all those droppers in place. So that will be a separate video. The next thing I want to do is build the little deck outside for this dust separator and the motor that goes on top of it, and a compressor will be out there as well, and have that all closed in. So that will probably be the next video. I hope everyone has a great day, and once again, thanks for watching.